As the host of Neutralize the Mama Trauma podcast, I am delighted to be able to bring you this podcast. My name is Wendy Lopez, and I would like to introduce myself to you. I specialize in helping people overcome their emotional blocks through different techniques, through emotional empowerment coaching and compassionate healing light facilitation. As a mom who has experienced narcissistic trauma, I help moms eradicate self-doubt in order to regain self-confidence to elevate their status both at home and at work. In our podcast, we discuss people's struggles, triumphs, and failures. We dive deeper into self-love, self-compassion, self-acceptance, and mindful, holistic tips. In every episode, I hope that you can take a golden nugget of advice and apply it to the journey of motherhood in order to raise your level of awareness. Welcome to Neutralize the Mama Trauma podcast, where you find healing and creative mental thought advice from experts on past pain, narcissistic experiences, and trauma. Today, I have a special guest, and her name is Jessica Raaum Foster. She's a Neuro Performance Coach. She helps people get out of their pain and improve performance by teaching them how to play with their brains. She uses practical tools and techniques taken from cutting-edge neuroscience to help people understand and overcome their obstacles to better health and performance. She works with a wide variety of clients, ranging from people stuck in pain to elite-level athletes and performers looking for an edge up. But it's her personal mission to share this information with everyone, regardless of their goals. She is also an award-winning singer, actress, songwriter, mother, and tiny house dweller. Welcome, Jessica. I'm so excited to have you on here.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. So our moms are going to be able to find you online, but let's first get to know you a little more. And can you tell us what was your struggle? What were you going through as far as we talked about before, your anxiety attacks?
Yeah.
Or panic attacks? What was going on in your life when that was occurring?
So that was happening. It kind of hit its zenith, I would say, in college. And, I remember there was something in my nervous system from the get-go. And it's so hard to unbraid, like, what was environmental trauma, what was passed down, just generationally without being spoken. What was the wiring of my nervous system? I now know there was probably something going on with my eyes and my vestibular system that was impacting how I was feeling in life. But yeah, we had moved multiple times. There was just sort of this buildup, right, of stuff. There was alcoholism. My father was gone most of the time. Like we were living abroad. There was a lot, and not all bad either. I mean, like there was a lot of good stuff happening as well. I was extremely active in high school, like, a bit maniacal in terms of do. And I got to college and I don't even really remember like what all I started drinking. So that, came into the equation. I had abstained knowing that was in my family history. And I was running cross country for the University of Washington. And so, I mean, like it was a big hot mess. Like it was just not, binge drinking and running is an interesting combination in and of itself. And then you add all of the other things. And yeah. And somewhere in high school, I developed a binge eating disorder, and that was, just spinning out of control. And now I'm on my own and, just kind of trying to burn the candle at both ends. And I just maxed myself out, I think. And actually my cousin passed away like during my freshman year, and he had been ill his entire life. This wasn't, it wasn't a surprise, but it was still traumatic. And I remember flying out to the East Coast for his memorial, and like, the switch went off, and I was no longer okay. Like it was, I was out of control. I had lost the reins completely at that point. And I came back home, and within a week of that, I remember sitting in my dorm room. I don't even remember what I was doing, nothing in particular. And just all of a sudden couldn't breathe. Like just couldn't breathe. And the thoughts, like the drama that unraveled in my brain as I thought I lost control of the thing that's supposed to keep you alive. Like it was really interesting to kind of see, like, I don't know, I went to some really dark places that I hadn't really named before, maybe, that kind of all just sort of came out in that moment. And I remember calling for help, and my friends came and like sat with me, and they didn't know what to do. And eventually they took me down to the ER because I was beyond, control for them either. And like, I remember lying there kind of catatonic, and my friend like sitting there holding my hand and crying, and, and I couldn't speak. Like I had lost the ability to communicate completely at that point. And then some time passed, and the doctors come in and they ran all these tests, and there was nothing wrong with me. And they sent me back home. And I'm like, well, there was clearly something wrong with me. That wasn't normal. What do you mean? And I don't remember the second day what happened at all, except it happened again. So I had 2 days back to back full-blown panic attacks that landed me in the ER, because what else do you do with somebody?
Oh, right.
And again, just like, eventually I came out of it, and I don't remember much. I mean, it was 20 years ago, so there's that, but I certainly remember being told by the doctor that there wasn't anything wrong with me. And I remember having to tell my friends that, and like the shame of like, I don't know what this was. I didn't create this. I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm really sorry I put you through this, but like, and not knowing what to do with that, like, is that going to happen again? Am I at the mercy of this? And I went and saw a therapist at that point for the first time. And it was interesting. I mean, she said something really simple. I mean, it's funny, the things that stick, and she was just like, could you just go lie down for 10 minutes in the middle of the day? And I was like, wait, are you allowed to do that? Like, is that something you're allowed to do? And she said yes. And so I actually tried it, and like little things like that, that just kind of gave me a chance to reset. And I guess there was sort of this, the way I hold it is like there was a path I walked down to get to that panic attack, like a thought process that I allowed to happen. And I kind of made sure it never happened again. That's the best I could do, was sort of not allow whatever that darkness was to fully take over again. And somehow I got enough wherewithal. I was clear enough that it wasn't going to happen. That did not mean things were okay, though. Like,
right. You just happened to know to control it, so it didn't get land you in the ER again.
Exactly. Exactly.
So what was manifesting in your body, or what were you feeling, or what was going on that you would have to go to the ER? Because sometimes people don't realize what a panic attack.
I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea. I mean, I could not get air in. I was hyperventilating. So it felt like I couldn't get air in, but now I know I was breathing in way too much air. And like just in hysteria. I mean, I was in hysteria, and it's so just like completely losing control of my emotional center. And on some level, like, it's funny to talk about this 20 years later, because I still kind of remember there was an element of it that was enjoyable. There was like something that was being expressed that I had not expressed, like decades at that point of built up hysteria that I had suppressed, and had never been allowed to communicate, or didn't know how to communicate, and
wow.
It was finally like, because on the outside, I looked like I was doing really well. And I had not been doing really well for a really long time. And there was no one. I try to explain to people, like, I ate the entire refrigerator last night. I couldn't put myself to bed because I was so busy eating, but I was skinny. So my friends would look at me and be like, you're fine. What'd you do? Eat a grape? It became like a joke for them. And I'm like in psychological hell. And, because I would binge and then I'd go run 18 miles. So like there was this exercise bulimia happening and you couldn't see the problem, but it didn't mean it wasn't there. And, as long as my grades were okay, and as long as I was, performing at high levels and, looked like it was pulled together, it was this weird thing where I simultaneously needed that for myself, but I also wanted that to all go away so people could really get that there was something going on.
Wow.
Yeah.
So one extreme to another.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it so interesting because and this is before you even have children, right?
Long before I had children, yes.
Long before children. Okay, so I find this so interesting because moms, in your case, like you mentioned, you looked fine.
Yep.
In the exterior, you looked fine. Even physically, you looked fine. With the bulimia, and they were even joking.
Yep.
And so when we're mothers, we also tend to, possibly have that, good job, a good family. We have our kids and it can look fine.
Yep.
But we're not fine.
Right.
And so that's what I love in speaking about this and bringing awareness to really checking in and that therapist that you talk to, the practical tip of just lying for 10 minutes. Can you do that? Can you give yourself 10 minutes to just lie down and breathe?
And I say this, I spent the next 20 years, seeking solutions to those problems and found them. And so when I actually entered motherhood, it was so the gratitude, because the load of motherhood is it's unlike anything I had. You just can't know until you're in it. The emotions of it and it's just everything. It's all encompassing. And, it's funny. A big part of what I do is physical work and training the body and all of these things. And, I took really great care of myself in pregnancy. And I didn't get the part where the self-care wasn't going to be available postpartum.
You didn't get that memo?
Didn't get that memo. That was a big shock to me. I was like, wait, where did that day go? And that one, and that one. And I'm not doing my own rehab drills that I know I should be doing. And, but that aside, I knew my nervous system well enough to kind of at least know to prioritize that 10-minute nap over making sure the bottles got washed at that moment in time, or that if I'm not okay, I guess that's the gift of my walk in this journey is I know that if I'm not okay, I actually become destructive, right? I have to prioritize my self-care, and it's not selfish. It's required, because the cost of tipping over that edge is way too high, and I'm not going to be the mom I want to be. Not even close, right? I'm going to cause harm with this energy that occurs when I'm not grounded and centered and and I don't have to be a saint, but there's a line in the sand, and making sure I'm taking care of Jessica enough that I can show up and do the things that need to get done.
Oh, yes. And that's putting yourself first, where you can be available in a healthy way for your daughter.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So you can be available for yourself. And with the work that you do, I find it so interesting too, that it's, you said athletes, right? So they're preparing themselves. And when we enter the journey of motherhood, it's like an emotional journey.
I love that analogy, Wendy. I don't think I've ever done anything quite as athletic as motherhood. Or as big, right? It's, a lot of the people, most of my clients, certainly as I was learning, my work is through an education system called Z Health, and it's a brain-based training program. And as I was learning that modality, most of my clients were people who had fallen through the cracks in the medical system. So stroke survivors, or, people with chronic pain or things that had not been resolved. And like the amount of work that goes into healing something like that is paramount to someone training for the Olympics. Like the heroics required to overcome something like that. And I don't think it's inaccurate to compare that to motherhood. And just because so many women are mothers doesn't mean it's like that it's easy. And I don't know. It's like it is this unwritten thing that we should just know how to do this.
And that's why I have the podcast.
Yes, exactly.
To bring to light this, like you train these athletes and, how about, the heroic of motherhood?
Right. I mean, what would it be like if we had training for that?
Yes, right. And
beyond here's the rubber baby and here's how you get the food out of its throat if it's choking. There's so much more.
We have like those basics. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But it's, I just find it so amazing that that's how, you are trained and skilled and, utilizing what you know how to do with the athletes. And, like even your bio said, like, if you want an edge up to come see you, right? So what if we want an edge up in motherhood?
I love that.
Love that. Yes, because then with the edge up in motherhood, from your panic attacks and my own, my stories with narcissism and emotional trauma, if we don't have the edge up, how do we get out of that trauma? And how do we become available emotionally for our children?
Yeah. Something I talk a lot about is capacity. And, actually, I have my little threat bucket here. May I?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
It now serves as a garbage can, but I have a video on this sort of explaining it in detail and with some humor.
Yes,
but
please do. Yes.
If this is sort of your capacity to hold shit that lives in your brain, and like we can all handle a certain amount and we'll filter it and there's a little hole in the bottom. It can drain out, with time and rest and care. But like life dumps stuff into our bucket. And this little overflow valve here, if water ends up coming out of the overflow valve, this is pain. And in my mind, pain is any physical experience I don't want to have. And I deem emotions as physical experiences. So like if this is my panic attack, this is someone else's back pain, this is, however your stress manifests, it's this overflow valve. And so what can I do to actually decrease the baseline level of the water in the bucket so that my capacity to take on what life chucks in it improves before I end up having negative side effects? And, with the work I do, we come in and it's really a cool concept. And it comes from neurology and this idea that like, if I can come in and sort of mind my nervous system for areas where I can actually clean up the function of my nervous system, that's the work I do. But there's obviously other things like, finances or, what are the things taking up space in our buckets that are decreasing our ability to show up to things the way we want to show up for them? And how can I take the time and the energy and the resources that I have and invest in creating more space in the bucket rather than trying to put Band-Aids on it?
Right. Which you said, increasing our capacity.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So we can increase our capacity in motherhood. Wow. That's, like what a concept.
I know.
Like,
and
really,
it's watching myself in motherhood with this kind of information in my head. It's like, it's not a panic attack. That's not something I've had to deal with, thankfully, since then, but like yelling at my kid, I don't want to. That's not how I want to do this. And, so when that's happening, can I pause and go, okay, you're responding with a full threat bucket. Like what do you need? What can we take out? Yeah. What do we do to decrease? And even being able to just name that for my daughter and be like, okay, it's not you. What you're doing is annoying me, but I'm responding in a way I need a minute because I don't like the way I'm responding. And let me go breathe into a bag or do whatever I need to do to kind of empty out a little bit so that my response comes from the place I want it to come from.
Right. And how healthy is that?
Yeah.
Right. And like you were talking about the nervous system. How
Right.
healthy is that for our nervous system?
Right. Right.
So it all plays a role in being able to work with our mental space, our head space, our heart space, our emotional space, to have the capacity to hold more space for ourselves and self-care, and for our children to be available for them. Because, like we were talking, like your, daughters in preschool, right? And my kids are, well, some are grown, but I have one in elementary. They have stressors too.
Totally.
Right. And we don't realize like they're stressors because we're thinking they're just kids, but they're in an environment where they have expectation.
I also think they're amazing mirrors for how this works because they don't have the training yet to rein it in. And so like when their threat bucket is full, it's a temper tantrum. It's falling apart. It's like they just are a basket case. Right? They're crying, they're whatever, they're no longer rational, right? And like, it's that we are the same way. We just have better tools to mask it,
To mask it.
to mask it.
So true.
And there's times I just kind of pause and I'm like, I can see my inner 4-year-old, me responding in exactly the same way.
Right.
And so what does she need? And can I parent her the way I would my child?
Right. Yes.
I don't mess around with my kids' bedtime. I'm serious when it comes to my kids' bedtime. Do I do that for myself? I don't know why it's harder. I'm the same human creature. It's
oh my goodness. So you mentioned you do songwriting.
I do songwriting in a previous time. It's interesting you brought that up because it is one way for me to let this out, right? And like kind of rather than have a panic attack, just write a song. Like get that out in a way that is creative and juicy, and or to shift the dial completely and write something that's going to bring joy or whatever message I need for myself. So most of my songs are like messages to myself, lullabies to myself. That I
like that.
Yeah.
Right.
And the one it's funny, the one that's out in the world on YouTube anyway. Like I haven't done much with my own personal music yet. It's on my list, but I wrote a song about pink tutus. It's a kind of a long story, but I had this woman that was doing this amazing project, bringing tutus and having people of all different types wear these tutus and taking photographs of them and then making collages. So you just have this assortment of humanity wearing tutus. And I loved what she was doing. And I was doing a concert of a CD of cover songs I had released at that point. And she was like, why didn't you wear a tutu? And I was like, no, like, don't you know who I think I am? Like, I'll be in all black and it will be very classy.
Not a tutu.
But I like caught myself with that statement and was like, why? Why do I feel that way? What if I did wear a tutu? And all of a sudden,
why not?
Yeah, right? Like what story is going through my head that says that's not okay? You like these photographs. What is it about? Why wouldn't I want to show up that way? And all of a sudden this song downloaded in my brain. I mean, I don't even feel like I could take credit. It just went, whoop, there it is. And I ended up recording it and using it I had an anatomy YouTube series where we sang songs about the muscles of the body, of course. But I was using it in the background for that. And then life got really hard around the time that was happening. I had separated from my husband at that point, and like things were dark. And I decided I was going to make a music video for this song. And like, I remember being in the most depressed place I feel like I've ever been, and like going, well, you're not sleeping anyway. It's like 4 a.m. Like, what would you like to do? Would you like to stay here and think about things longer? Or maybe would you like to go out and make art? And I somehow got myself up and curled my hair and went out into New York City, because that's where I was living at the time, and like danced on subway tracks and did all kinds of crazy things. And I made this amazing video that like still to this day brings me so much joy to watch and to share. And like, so yeah, I mean, it is, art can be so powerful in its ability to heal, and it's just pretty awesome. And now my daughter like narrates her life in song, and if that's what I've brought into the world, I'm happy. I actually just posted a reel yesterday. She's climbing this waterfall. It's been raining here in California. We call water that trickles down at any speed a waterfall, but like she's climbing up it and narrating it. She's like, step, step, this is muddy for me. Step, step, I'm sinking with glee. And I'm like, okay, that was fantastic. You rhymed.
Wow, that's amazing. Oh my goodness. That's fantabulous. Oh my gosh. I totally love that.
It was
totally
great.
Love that. And this is, so that's so awesome that you're able to transmit that to her.
Yeah, I'm really grateful that is, I mean, that's a priority for me. And, joy it's a skill, and it has to be practiced for me anyway. It doesn't just organically come. It has to be a choice. And, nature and singing and all of these things are huge for me in that way. And so, yes, if I can share those tools with my daughter, okay. She's going to have her journey, and she's going to have her trials. Like you said, they have their own threats. She certainly does, but she has those tools, and that feels really, really cool. Really cool.
Right. And so, in your journey with the panic attacks, when did you realize that you had to make a choice, or how did that choice become that you actually went out and received some type of help to get you through whatever was going on in your head or in your life or even in your body?
Yeah, I mean,
when did you make that choice?
It's an interesting question, because it was, I mean, I do think those panic attacks were such a wake-up call for me that like I could go there. And I have mental illness in my family. And so, it felt like I was dabbling with that. And like, if I didn't take care of this, I would be headed in a direction I might not be able to have a choice, at some point.
Interesting.
So, and I don't know that I could have named that at 21 or however old I was, 19 when that happened. But that, I think there was enough of a wake up call there for me to go, I best keep this in check. And it certainly wasn't like I suddenly was okay. That's the thing. And like, it did set me on, but it set me on the path of there has to be a solution to this. I'm not going to stop until I find it. And I spent 20 years seeking, and I mean, I still am, right? But like, my goodness, the places I've gone in that time, the things that I got to experience as a result of that decision to seek, and not one of those things was the answer, but the seeking itself, I think, produced. I'm so grateful, this is the life I've gotten to live as a result of that extremely painful moment, or decade or whatever it was. But yeah, I mean, I got a lot of support through therapy. I had a therapist, from that moment on. I process verbally, it turns out. So like, I need being able to talk about things is really helpful for me. I don't know that is for everybody, but for me, it definitely is. And, I got into 12-step work and multiple 12-step programs. And that gave me a foundation for living that I, still hark back to. And, multiple kind of new age self-improvement workshops that changed every one of them changed my life, and brought me into a deeper place with myself and with my connection to my divine, how I experience the divine and humanity and life and all of these things. And, but what was really interesting is that 20 years into this dance, it felt like I had tools to manage these things, but I hadn't solved the problem. And I don't know what brought Z Health into my life. Like, why? I moved to New York to pursue performing, and I found Z Health there. It's based in Arizona, so that was totally weird. But it offered for me the physical side of it. And the fact that there were these deficits in my nervous system, that my eyes didn't function right, that my vestibular system, the balance system in your inner ear was wonky. And like the signals I was taking in through my receptors was wrong. Like I was just walking through the world was dumping threat into my bucket, regardless of what the circumstances were. And so my capacity to show up for the things that mattered, including my own recovery, were hindered. And when I started cleaning those up, it got better almost, it wasn't instantaneous. It was a 5-year journey to kind of get to a place where I'm like, I don't have anxiety attacks or even the threat of them. I don't have an eating disorder anymore. I don't have all of these things that were they'd been around for so long. I felt identified with them and they're gone. And so it's like that physical piece was so important for me. I believe the physical piece can be supportive for anybody trying to sort of empty that threat bucket. But if the problem really is in the wiring, it's imperative. And it certainly was for me. So yeah. I love the work I do. It's maybe because I've had the time with sort of the esoteric psychosocial place and, to have this physical piece and have these tools to kind of tinker with things and have it impact the way I feel is like, it's so cool. It's really fun. It's like,
right.
Really pretty cool. And
right.
I like to think of us as, like being wide. How do we take care of ourselves being wide? Every element of our being.
Explain that a little bit more, like your perspective on being wide. What does that mean to you?
Meaning, I can't just focus on the physical and ignore, how my environment is impacting me. I can't ignore, my history and how that plays into my experience of life, the choices I'm making. So all of those sort of stools of the seat the legs of the stool need to be in place for me to thrive. And so am I in my self-care practices, am I acknowledging all of those legs of the stool? Am I taking care of my spirit, my body, my relationships, the things that either are going to fill my threat bucket or help empty it. And that's
right.
They're all so important. And
right. So what do you think, if they're filling up, you've mentioned like the 4 legs, right? Like their spirit, their body, their mental body, and even their heart. Like, what do you think for moms would be like their goal, if they're the end goal, if they're taking care of that? What is that providing for them?
With the your work that you do. Yeah. It's when I was walking through early motherhood and realizing I don't have the time I used to take care of these these legs of the stool. And I know how important it is for me to do that so I can, stay present and sane in this relationship with my daughter and everyone else. I think just honoring the fact that those legs exist brought awareness to me to make sure I was doing something for them and integrating it into, my favorite phrase is, what can I do? Okay, I can't go to the gym, but what can I do? Well, I can play with my kid and I can move my body while I'm playing with my kid. We can play. Now I'm getting sunlight. Now I'm getting, stimulation from all of the world around me. Can I nap while she's napping? Can I, whatever, eat while she's eating, but make sure I'm getting, something so that one of those stools doesn't get out of line and I'm teetering all over the place. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So finding, moms finding a balance or alignment, so we can stay in balance with, like you said, teetering, right? Because we are with moms, we carry so much. We have work, we have, school, we have our own self to deal with, right? If we have a partner, or relatives, or whatever the environment is, we're teetering with many, many things. So it's finding that balance. So like you said, if we have those like pillars or, the feet of the footstool, right? If we have those grounded, then we can be more present for,
I've never thought about it this way, but it's coming to me now. But like, it was like I had two kids. It was like I was taking care of her, but I also was taking care of me. And I had enough wherewithal with all the work I'd done to know that was important and to do that. And, my house wasn't pretty.
I've been through that.
Things got, I wasn't able to work, so we all have our different things that go into the threat bucket, but given the circumstances that I had, right? Like, okay, this is the reality. I am full-time mommy. So like, how do I do this? Well, for me, it was easiest to eat when she ate, sleep when she slept, clean while she's playing, play while she's playing. So I'm getting some of that too. And I kind of made myself the second kid and just mothered us both at the same time. And it it worked, as long as I had, when there were a few traumatic things that happened in that time, and all of a sudden then it was like, wait, I can't do this anymore. And it's really interesting because Mama Bear came out then, right? And now that I'm looking at it in hindsight, it wasn't just Mama Bear to protect my child. It was Mama Bear to protect myself so that I could protect my child. Because if you're going to come in and interrupt that very delicate dance of self-care and mother, you are now putting my relationship with my child at risk, and I'm not having it. And you got to go.
So true. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
That's what we do, right?
And it's what we do.
The protectors. Yeah.
We are the protectors. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is the protection of, during that kind of traumatic phase there, it was crystal clear to me that, I was protecting myself so that, because without me, if I'm not functioning, then she has nothing. So I am it. I am the single most important person in this conversation. Because if I'm not functioning, he's going to pay the price for it.
Yeah, that's true. That is so true. So can you tell us about your mini course that's coming out? Is it February? Yeah, tell us about that.
I'm pretty excited about this. The bio I sent you, like, that's what I send to podcasts, and it's, it's so broad, and like, tailoring it down to something specific so that someone can resonate and go, oh, that's me, and that would be useful for me. And for me, the biggest gifts of this work have been managing my anxiety and the depression that I think dances with it. For me, other people, depending on who you are, anxiety may be its own thing and depression may be its own thing. For me, they kind of caused each other, impacted each other. And yeah, so it's 10 tips or tools basically taken from neuroscience that I think have had the most profound impact for me and certainly my clients in managing anxiety and depression from that kind of nervous system perspective. So it's not therapeutic. It's not, it's literally looking at the physical piece of this. So if you've done work with a therapist or done other things like this could be the missing link, right? And kind of bringing this in and seeing what your nervous system has to say. It also is there's a module in it kind of teaching you how to communicate with your nervous system to get objective scientific feedback on like choices that we're making for ourselves or how well we're actually doing in the moment. And, so it's a taster. I'm thinking of it like as a poo-poo platter into the work I do, like sample a few things. You get an experience of trying it on. I'm making it, it was supposed to, I really thought this was going to be like a Google Doc with a couple videos in it. It's actually very thorough. And I want to keep it accessible though. So I'm keeping it at the $29 marker that I had planned. I think probably going to be a much bigger deal down the road. So, but this is a way for me to share this information and yes, get it out into the world because I don't know. I feel like anyone with a human body deserves to understand how this human body works. And, the more we understand that, the more we're able to take care of ourselves and show up to the world in the way that we want. And so, so that so I have a few finishing touches going into it. It's going to drop February 17th. So the best ways to kind of keep up with that. I'm very busy on Instagram. I love performing juices out on Instagram Reels now, and sharing the neurology work I do, and my message, in creative ways is pretty fun for me. So I'll definitely be sharing about the course that way. And then I have a weekly newsletter that you can sign up for on my website. And that I'll be sharing about the course in there as well. But it's evergreen.
How can they find you online?
Neurologyofpresence.com.
Okay. Beautiful.
And Jessica, Instagram is Jessica Raaum Foster. So it's my name.
Okay. Beautiful. And is there any practical tips you want to give to moms that they might be able to apply to deal with their motherhood? Any something that may have helped you or something that they can.
So the interesting thing, tip. So when it comes to the nervous system, everybody's different, which I think is super exciting and interesting. So what worked for me, just acknowledging that what works for somebody may not be what works for you, and that's okay. There's, I think, from a most general perspective, that playing piece, I think that saved my life in that first year. Like really just mimicking my kid and what she was doing. And that got me moving when I didn't have time to move for myself. Like kids do a lot of really interesting novel movements. They're learning how to explore the world and, have a relationship with this physical world that I had forgotten about on some level as an adult. Novelty wasn't there anymore. And so I seriously feel like that was the sweetest, most amazing medicine I could have gotten. And I didn't anticipate that, going into motherhood. But really seeing the world through her eyes and like taking the time to play with the dirt and build blocks and knock them down and spin and like let her me in, right, to what she's doing. And I woke up a lot during that. Like it healed a lot of things and set me on a path of curious play that even though now like I drive her to her gymnastics class and sit and watch her, which is way less fun, but well, then how do I get that for myself now? Right. Like
Right.
Can I keep that play going? And how do I integrate, how do I keep integrating these self-care practices into the things I'm doing already in my day? And being gentle with myself that it's not going to be what I thought it was. It doesn't, whatever that perfect looking mom over there who's probably not feeling it either, like it's just, that's not what it's going to be like for me. In terms of other like specific neural things, again, we're all different, but a weighted blanket was my best friend postpartum and during naps, and like having someone hold me. I mean, it was a blanket, but but it felt
That's
really
amazing though, right? The weight.
Yeah. And most people like it. Not everybody does, but you can get one. You can try one, like get one from Amazon, order it. You can send it back if you don't like it. I have a delicious one from Bearaby.com. They're not paying me to say this, but it's like sustainable luxury. It's the most luxurious item I own, and I love it so much. And it calms my nervous system down so much and makes the sleep I do get, better. And it's any of those things in neurology, we call this interoception. It's sort of like how we feel in our body, and kind of pressure or heat on the abdomen can have a big impact on that. I don't have it with me here, but I have like an ab belt it's like a neoprene wrap. They sell them as like weight loss tools, but putting that on, it's just like a thick piece of neoprene, and you wrap it around, and that takes my anxiety down. Like the first time I put it on, it went from an 8 to a 4 instantaneously.
Wow.
This was before motherhood, and I did not want to take that thing off. I think I wore it for 3 months straight. I did shower, and like it made such a difference for me. And eventually I didn't need to wear it all the time. And then eventually I didn't need to wear it at all. But now if I'm feeling anxious, or if I'm, fighting something or something, like a cold or something's filling my threat bucket, I can put that back on, and it makes a difference. It really does. I think about it as like a hug again, like.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's amazing. And how the body needs it. We
do. And, some of us are lucky enough to have someone that'll hold you at a moment's notice, but I haven't been that person, and I needed it. So like, it's, I'm grateful for science.
We can be married to a partner and not have that emotional connection or emotional support, because, our partner, like you said, everybody's nervous system is different. Everybody's emotional system is different.
Right.
And so even if you have a partner, I would highly suggest these tools, because, we're meant for connection.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So what was the second item? The neoprene?
It's called a neoprene waist belt or an ab belt. I get the one I use and I recommend is Sweet Sweat on Amazon. There is nothing special about this one, but it's thick, and so it gets a nice wide coverage. I mean, if I could walk around in a wetsuit, I probably would. It just makes me feel contained and held. And again, this is not for everybody, but for someone like me, where I tend to sort of vacate my body at a moment's notice, it's really helpful.
Moment's notice.
Jessica has left the building. Not sure who's running, but she's not doing very well.
Oh my gosh. So this brings you back into your body.
It does.
Oh, because it's safe for you to be back in your body when you're having the weighted blanket or like the ab belt, right? Because it's that holding here, the abdomen, right? Oh, yeah. And then that's where like our root chakra is, right? So that the security.
Yep.
That's
and
so amazing.
Talking chakras, like sometimes I'll wear, the ab belt around the stomach is where it's sort of traditionally worn for neurological purposes. But sometimes having it up over my heart feels so good. Sometimes wrapping it around my pelvis is what I want. Like it's an amazing tool for just kind of, bringing a little extra. And it's funny because it's not supporting anything, but it is holding, and it's a little bit different.
And it's the feeling.
It's the feeling. It's like grounding
being
and
held.
reminding me that that part of me exists and it's contained. So
and supported.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing that with us.
Totally.
That was very unique.
Yeah. And so this mini course is like 10 weird things like that.
Oh, awesome.
Those two are in there, so you've got two. But I actually think this one has
Thank
like
you
15.
for sharing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
they're so easy, right? Like the thing about that app belt, like I can just stick it on. I don't have to think. It doesn't require energy for me to do it. Unlike I'm going to go do a yoga practice. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's really not going to happen, you know? And this is passive, almost completely passive. So I am all for things that do not require activation energy when it comes to managing anxiety and depression. Because, you know,
you're right. Yeah.
If the self-care is going to flood your threat bucket, that's not
right when I do it. Yeah. And that's why I wanted a practical tip, because we're ready, like mom's going to already be overflowing.
Exactly.
And it's like, we need that. What can we do? So thank you so much for sharing. And I hope they do. And I'm interested in purchasing that myself, because I can, help my clients as well with those suggestions, right? It's just the feeling of being held.
Yep.
And like I said, one can be married, have a partner, and not have that.
Well, and also I need more hugs than the average bear, it turns out, I think. And does a partner even want to do that? Should I even be asking for that? Like, what's that doing to the partnership? If I give myself that, if I can give myself that, I can show up very differently in that relationship, rather than being like, it's your job to
or not so needy, right?
Exactly.
Oh. Wow, so amazing. Well, I'm so glad we got together.
Yes,
and
me too.
I loved it. And I look forward, and I'll send you some information for the Soul Mama Summit. We would love to have you. And wow, this is just amazing, because moms need this type of support, knowing about, people like you. And this is why I have the podcast too.
No, this is such
I realized, because I realized at one point that, there's only one me. But I know there's so many others that are doing work just like me in their way that I would have loved to have known.
Well, and it's like the wisdom is there. We've been mamaing forever,
Yeah.
It's just needs to be shared. And I mean, modern mamas have a different challenge, I think. But it's the community and the sharing and the talking about this stuff and making it real.
Absolutely.
So valuable.
Yes, I agree.
So thank you for doing this. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you for your presence, and we look forward to you in the future. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to Neutralize the Mama Trauma podcast. If you haven't already, please hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any new episodes. It would also mean the world to me if you're able to take a moment and rate and review my podcast on how it was helpful to you. Also, please connect with me on my social media platforms. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next episode.